Would a battery-powered stereo system sound good? This question we've gotten before, and I don't know that I've ever properly addressed it, so it might be a good one. It comes from Mayrab in Bangladesh. Paul, would a system which is running off of batteries, powering the rails of a circuit directly, and keeping the noise and all of the problems with power supply down sound good? It could potentially sound good, and much depends on how it's implemented and what the batteries are like. So let me explain. Everything in our systems runs off of battery voltage, DC, direct current. And we start with AC, alternating current that comes out of the wall. So that alternating current goes into a transformer, is transformed from one voltage to another, usually lower. So let's say we have 120 volts coming in. We transform it through magnetic coupling of two coils called a transformer down to a lower voltage. So let's call that 30 volts. So we go from 120 to 30 volts, and then we want to convert, and that's still AC. Now we're going to convert it to DC, battery voltage, if you will, and we run it through a series of regulators and everything to get rid of all the AC. That's what we're trying to do. And the more AC that we started with, that we can get rid of, the better and cleaner and lower noise our system is going to sound. So it would seem obvious that if we never had AC in the first place, then we'd be much better off, because if you start with a battery, it never has AC, right? So it has to be cleaner and quieter, and in fact, it is. We're going to ignore the practicality of batteries, which of course have to be charged, don't always maintain, well, they rarely maintain the same voltage level all the time. But you can use regulators, there's things you can do with it. The biggest problem with batteries, aside from the practical issues, is the impedance. Now, impedance may be a bit of a misnomer, because impedance is what we consider in a moving current situation, usually AC. So when we talk about impedance, we're talking about the resistance of an AC signal. And of course, if we start with DC, we don't have any AC, right? But actually we kind of do, because as we draw current from our preamp or power amp or whatever we're doing, that is modulating the battery. So if I draw current through a resistor or a battery or anything, whatever voltage I start with is going to go down slightly. And that's because I'm dynamically drawing from that source. When I do that, I can measure how much of a drop there is. And we think of that as impedance because it's actually, we're dynamically drawing that. As the music gets loud or soft, we're dynamically drawing current. And let's not get overly wacky and technical on me here, because you could say, well, you know, I've got a Class A circuit. It's always drawing the same amount. Fine. I'm trying to make a point here to try and help people understand exactly what's going on. What you want in a power supply, regardless of how that supply is fed, whether it's fed by AC or DC at the beginning, you want something that is rock solid. And we would refer to that as extremely low impedance. And the lower the impedance, the better we're going to get in sound. And that is true whether it's a DC circuit or an AC circuit. And that's one of the reasons that we build power plants, that the AC coming out of the wall, if we regulate it, if we very tightly regulate the AC so that when we draw current, there is no voltage drop, or the voltage drop is extremely little, then we can say it has low impedance. And that has a tremendous impact on the way the system sounds. The same is true inside of the preamp or power amp or whatever you are building. And batteries, unless they are a lot of cells, typically have fairly high impedance. And the reason is because most batteries are fairly small voltage, and so to get 30 volts, you'd have to stack up a whole bunch of battery cells. Each of those cells has resistance, impedance that is going to lower the voltage when you start drawing current. And the higher the voltage, the more cells in a battery we have to have, or some means of upping that voltage. And what happens is, in most circuits that are running at these typical voltages of 30, 40 volts, we've got a number of cells, we've got high impedance, and as a result, they don't sound as good as what we can do by taking higher voltage and narrowing it down and keeping the impedance low. So yes, it's a good idea, but in practical terms, it's very difficult to do as well. It's really hard to keep the impedance low, and I have not seen many that can do that. Not impossible, but that is, in a nutshell, why we would not recommend a battery-powered stereo system. Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.